This is right at the front of the race too. And it's a Movistar rider. It's not Nairo Quintana. It looks like winner Anacona. It is winner Anacona who's gone down for Movistar. So it was a Colombian on Movistar, but not Nairo Quintana.
And that was right in the front of that leading peloton. Now look at the long line, because all those riders on the brakes trying to swerve around and just getting themselves back into the bunch, full sprint and panic to get back up there. Luckily for them, the direction of the road has got them riding in a tailwind at the moment. Not that panic of the crosswind, a bit of an easier return. But the guys who have crashed, that'll be it for today. They'll be back in one of those groups behind them.
One BMC rider went down. It was Damiano Caruso. Gatto and Mike are the two riders who went down for Tinkoff. Winner Anacona, the rider that fell from Movistar. Pierre Roland now coming through to the front in the green colours of Cannondale Drapac. Behind him is Alejandro Valverde. 5 kilometres to the intermediate sprint. Peter Sagan for the sprint. May as well pick up another 20 points.
He'll be looking to take some easy points without doing a full sprint. We'll see if Mark Cavendish is really that interested in it, or thinking more about a 4th stage win in this tour. So we see Movistar moving up the left-hand side of the bunch for Nairo Quintana. And in a moment, this road starts to swing back slightly to the right again, which will start to change that wind direction for them.
Valverde sitting in second position from the... This is TJ Van Garderen at the back of this group. Marcus Burkhardt is the rider that he's got with him. This is the front group because Arthur Vichot is in here. They're now taking Van Garderen around the outside. Chimale calling for a drink, neutral service.
This is Albacini at the back of the group for Orica Bike Exchange.
And Van Garderen very quickly being taken to the front by Marcus Burkhardt on the left-hand side of the right-hand turn. A medium strip that reminds me of stage 1 and the crash with Alberto Contador. We don't want to see any more crashes. A drink of wine might be required tonight to settle the nerves before going to bed.
A very different shape to the groups. Front group, more compact, bit more relaxed, catching their breath, getting ready for the next section. This group, single file, desperate to get back. It's Thibaut Pinot and the other riders we saw a moment back together, 3 groups, and FDJ with a lot of work to do.
Heading for the banner here, we're going to see the sprints. This will be the kilometre to go as the riders go underneath. And now if we can get back up to the front there with our cameras, they've done an incredible peloton which has been breaking up every opportunity with the wind. This is a chase group here, a Française de Jeu, trying once again to bring Thibaut Pinot back up to the pack.
Yeah, well, they're hovering at around about 46 seconds, but there are further groups. The wind is again, Phil, you've just got to be attentive. You've got to be so attentive, so careful coming into these corners, because bear in mind, on these flatter stages, unlike the mountain stages where the teams go and have a reconnaissance, they don't know what they're going into sometimes into these corners. On the front of this field now, it's Ethics Quickstep trying to lead the sprint out for Marcel Kittel, but in the green jersey, hovering there is Peter Sagan, and on his wheel, it's Mark Cavendish.
Well, the sprinters are having a bit of a rehearsal here for their journey into Montpellier, which is still 49 kilometres away. Marcel Kittel is 3rd overall in this competition as he tries to take the points, and he gets them ahead of Sagan and Cavendish over the line.
Well, 49 kilometres to go now, Phil. That's just about 30 miles of racing. But obviously, as you can see, the riders who sit 1st, 2nd and 3rd overall in that competition are very attentive. This is the moment when Marcel Kittel opens up the sprint, probably just trying the legs, trying to blow out the cobwebs. Sagan cruises across the line in the slipstream there for 2nd position, and Mark Cavendish in 3rd.
Yeah, coming off that bend at 50 metres to go caught Mark out, I think. He suddenly saw the line. It was all too late. They're the top 3 sprinters in the green jersey competition crossed that line. Slightly different order, but the same 3 names. Wow, that was a really great sprint. Pézenas is where we are. 52 seconds back to the Pinot peloton as we pass around the collegiate here of Saint-Jean.
Well, there's the next group, and what a big group it is as well. They're looking at around about 50 seconds. But I keep looking across at the map because that's the important thing. And all of the team managers in the cars behind today will be doing exactly the same thing, checking out the map, looking at the change of direction of the road, because that change of direction is associated with the change of wind direction against the peloton. Having gone through this small town now of Pézenas, once they go out of town, they will turn towards the north, and then they will turn now to the east once again.
Well, I just hear that poor old Tommy Vauclair has got a rear wheel flat. Yeah, I haven't got any pictures of that just yet. We're too busy showing this lovely, I don't know what it is really. Is this the Collegiate of Saint-Jean?
Yep, looks very much like the Collegiate Church of Saint-Jean, built in 1740. There's quite a collection of furnishings and a bell in there dating back to 1597. There's also a magnificent organ as well, not too far away from the banks of the River Hérault.
Yes, Marcel Pagnol, the great author, once wrote, if Jean-Baptiste Poquelin was born in Paris, then Molière was born here in Pézenas. Well, there's the peloton, and again Sky controlling this race in the front. Ethics have done their job. Julien Alaphilippe is the rider there at present. Astana are here to keep Arus safe, and I can see now that Mark Cavendish is going to rely a little bit on Edvald Boasson today in that Norwegian champions jersey, because don't forget, Cavendish has lost his lead-out man, the Australian from Bathurst in New South Wales, Mark Renshaw, who left the race with sickness.
Yes, but he can also count on Bernie Eisel. Lots of panic at the back as riders drop back there. That's Bernie Eisel, in fact, the rider we were just talking about, Phil, for Dimension Data. He was going back to that motorbike that carries drinks for all of the riders. Dimension Data riders topped up with fluids on this. It's a pretty hot day, actually, with the temperature creeping up to around about the 30 degrees Celsius mark, but cooled by this violent wind, which we've seen speeds of up to 35 miles an hour.
The wind that's blowing today is called the Tramontana, and it blows across the country, and as you can see, it's really hurting the race. The riders were expecting this wind. When you race to Montpellier, you always expect the wind, but it has been getting stronger yesterday, even stronger today, and they're talking of major winds on Mont Ventoux tomorrow, so we can expect a really tough ride up the Giant of Provence.
Well, as we look back there, you get a chance to see the gap. That gap is hovering around about the 1 minute mark. I would think the only way they're going to get back into contact with the front end of this race this afternoon is if there is a slowing down in the front peloton. But for the moment, it doesn't seem as if they want to. They've still got this pace being made by the teams of the overall contenders. Sky never far away, and it's put Thibaut Pinot on the back foot. I don't think it's that important for Thibaut Pinot today. He's lost too much time in the overall standings to consider a podium finish in this year's Tour de France, but of course he does have the pride of being the leader in the King of the Mountains competition.
Well, the strong men have got command at the front here at the moment, and I have to say I've been very impressed by the riding of Mark Cavendish. He's never lost position throughout for Team Dimension Data. You know, the Africans, South Africans in particular, have claimed Montpellier these last few years. The South African Robbie Hunter got the first stage win for his country here back in '07, and a couple of years ago the yellow jersey was worn by Darrell Impey, first South African to wear the maillot jaune. So, well, we can't call Cavendish South African, but he rides for an African team.
And certainly Dimension Data presented by Quebec has certainly represented the continent over the last few years, and Mark Cavendish, for one, Phil, really has adopted the spirit of the team, which is basically pretty much to try and get kids onto bikes throughout the continent of Africa. Every bike race they go to, they've got this goal, and that's to try and get 5,000 bicycles into children, into the townships and across South Africa. And so far they're doing a pretty good job here, but now they're getting ready, Phil, for the change in direction. Look at this, the change in attitude. You can see the speed. All of a sudden it ramps up 5-10 kilometers an hour.
And it is always Tinkoff that started for Peter Sagan. They've just hit the front again, but there's plenty of people willing to help. Look on the left here now. Look, Rowe has started to drive for Chris Froome's team.
Well, they haven't got to the point where they will turn towards the left and start to head in a slightly north-easterly direction. That's the moment they're racing for. They're all racing to position their leaders, to position their sprinters at the front end of the peloton, because they know when they turn left, and I'm keep looking at the clock and the map, we're looking at about 4 kilometers, 2.5 miles, and as you can see them slowing down, they realize, oh, we haven't quite got to that point yet, but they're so nervous. They're all waiting for that moment when they know that the race is going to split again.
Well, such has been the pressure, the race organisers have just authorised the riders to receive drinks from the cars until 15 kilometres to go. Normally this has to stop at 20 and leave the race alone, but they've been under so much pressure today, I should imagine they're drinking all the water on the race.
Yeah, well, right, Phil, I don't think at 24 kilometres to go to the finish, I want to go back to the team car and get a few drinks, because if you do right now, it's going to be a very difficult moment to get up to the front end of the main field. Forget about having a drink now. Just think about this. We're looking at a speed approaching 74 kilometers an hour right now. The leaders that we're talking about, the sprinters, look at the speeds that they're doing in the main field. They're all doing around
speeds right now, 40, 40, 40, all at 40 miles an hour or 74 kilometers an hour.
Yep, very, very quick, and that's why everyone is so nervous. I keep looking, 23 kilometers to go, and they all know that. They'll be getting this information from the team management. They will have looked at the maps, and very shortly, once they get into that town, the town should be just about on the horizon, Montbazin, and then the left-hand turn. Look at this. Everybody's trying to reposition themselves. Here's a bit of a sweeper to, oh, they scare me, those traffic circles these days.
Yeah. Well, they're seeing them at such high speeds now, but they seem okay at this time around. Our old friend Steve Cumming, who's won a stage at the back here again, 104. Look at the flags. We changed direction. It's coming sweeping across. It's pushing the riders up against the hedges. It's all eyes down again.
Well, it certainly is, and you can now see everybody with that wind coming from the left-hand side getting pushed over to the right-hand side of the road. But now's the moment when you need to hold your position in the main field. Around the traffic circle as they start to head towards that little town of Montbazin, then we'll start to see who's got the energy, who's got the power to remain in the front 15 to 20 positions. 22 kilometers to go. That's around about 13 miles of racing, and that's going to be knocked off in less than half an hour today. Well, you can tell that the wind now is coming from the left-hand side of the screen. It's on the rider's left-hand shoulder, which is why they're scuttling across to the right-hand side. The front end, the men who are the strongest men in this race, occupying all of the road. All of they're doing is trying to shelter their teammates and shelter their leaders. Tinkoff looking after Peter Sagan and Roman Kreuziger as we head now into the beautiful little town of Montbazin. Just down there, you get a quick glimpse there of the chapel of Saint-Pierre. 11th, 12th century, and the riders won't have time for any of this history this afternoon, and that is a beautiful Romanesque chapel, unique on the account of the importance of its Romanesque frescoes and Byzantine influence, which is pretty rare in this region of France. So the building originally was an integral part of the castle that was here and part of its defensive system.
Towards the finishing line,
listed as a historic monument in France in 1964. Today it serves as a venue for concerts and cultural exhibitions and events. Well, all the kids having a quick run out there, all the kids in the yellow jerseys are coming down towards the side of the road, but you can just see that this wind is coming from the left-hand side. Everybody's scuttling over to the right-hand side, just looking for a little bit of respite from the wind.
Lee Howard tagged on to the back there of George Bennett, the New Zealand rider, because George was involved in a crash. Lee Howard, as we know, spent an awful long time ahead of the race today, but now they've been put to the back of the bunch under extreme pressure of the riding. It is turning out to be a terrific day of racing, what really is a quiet day of racing normally on these flatter roads. We're looking now for the 20 kilometers to go banner. Howard looks pretty cool considering he gave away so much effort in that breakaway with Artuvie show.
Yeah, but you can see the wounded riders, the wounded warriors at the back end. There is George Bennett. He's been down on the ground. A very dramatic crash by him early on, and also just in front of him, wearing number 84, the American rider Alex House. You can see he's also pretty much bandaged up, and both of these riders on spare machines, neither of the machines having the race numbers on. And again, the change in direction allows the peloton to slow down just a little bit, but you can almost feel the nervousness creeping in here as everybody wants to hold their position in the main field.
Oh, it's a tough day for Alex House. He's got bandages all over him. He looks like a man in a suit of armour at the moment. But those riders at the front now, first of all, you got Tinkoff, clearly made their plans very, very apt for everybody. They're driving it at the front as we now swing out across the good wetlands here. This is a bird watcher's paradise, by the way, as we usually pick up the flamingos. Just looking out here across the situation, there's a nice little cathedral here. Well, that's a lovely place to build that cathedral, right in the middle of nowhere. Tell me about that one, Paul.
Well, that is the Cathedral of Magalone. As you can see, it's pretty much of a solitary cathedral stuck on a former volcanic island. Today it's linked to the main road, the mainland, by a number of bridges. And again, it is part of the old Gallo-Roman town here of Magalone. There again, what a magnificent part of the world that we're riding through here this afternoon. It really is quite magical. And the history, there's a big Roman history in this part of the world as well, as we get back to the peloton now at 19 kilometers to go, away from Montbazin into an area where there's not very much protection, not much respite from the wind. And these are the moments now when the overall contenders are thinking, I've just got a few more kilometers to stay in contact with this group. I don't want to lose any time this afternoon. And the sprinters are thinking, well, I've got to position myself. I've got to start to get my lead-out train well organised.
They've tried to hurt the field every opportunity on wind change, but now it looks as though they're just trying to go. Richie Port in our camera there for Team BMC, but I'm struggling to find, see Alejandro Valverde. I can't see at the moment where TJ Van Garderen has drifted off to. We've got 3 Team B, and there's 2 down there. I think the back one, the second, bit far down for TJ. You better watch out if this wind changes direction.
And it's about to change direction as big old Fabian Cancellara comes right up through the middle. He wants to try and place his man Toons towards the front. He knows that the young sprinter on his squad has got a chance of cracking the top 5 and maybe the top 3 again. But look at this. All of a sudden, the big acceleration, the change of speed. Every time they come to these directional islands, they know that there's always the possibility the main field will split again and again.
Well, we've just seen Fabrice Jean de Bose go out there for direct energy, because if this wind senses you lose a couple of meters, it blows you away. And the work now is on, and Cancellara is the rider who's come to the front.
Well, the wind was coming very strongly from the rider's left-hand shoulder, which is why you see everybody scuttling across to the right-hand side of the road, just looking for some shelter, looking for some respite. But I can tell you from experience, at the moment like that, if you're not really well sheltered at around about 45 degrees to the rider in front of you, you've got nowhere to go and you just get popped off the gap. You see how now the wind's coming from the left-hand side of the riders. They're forming that diagonal line, but you've got to fight to get the position on the right-hand part of the screen there. That's the most important place to be.
And guess who's winning the fight right now? It's Team Sky with the yellow jersey. It's their favourite position in the race, this, as they're still trying to organise it. And in fact, the green jersey, Peter Sagan, is locked onto the yellow jersey now of Chris Froome, as they're sensing this. Oh, look at the grimace on their faces. This is beginning. Look at Mickey Shaw back there in the yellow helmet. He's sitting on the wheel of Sagan, and you don't often see Mickey Shaw grimace like that.
But, you know, you look at the faces of these riders, Phil, and there's almost an appearance of panic there. But I noticed Bauke Mollema was up towards the front end of this peloton, but right direction. Look how much damage the wind can do on a flat day. You'd hardly believe it, but I can tell you, I've been in this situation before, and if you don't know how to position yourself, you crack. And one rider cracks in front of you, then all of a sudden there's a split in the main field.
I think I've seen a Movistar rider go out there with a flat tyre. I think it was Nelson Oliveira. and he's a pretty strong workhorse. Now we've got to keep an eye where the Movistar boys are located here, because they're not near the front just at the moment, as they're now starting to really ride. And look at the cheeky Peter Sagan. He's tempting everybody to come out and play. Yeah, but still 12k to go, and being chased by the yellow jersey. This is an amazing situation.
Well, Froome sees a little... Right, I know Peter Sagan. I know how strong he is. I'm going for this. And he's been, his teammate, Geraint Thomas there, caught out a little bit. He was, I think, a bit surprised to see the acceleration coming from the yellow jersey.
Chris Froome is beginning to ride a Tour de France like the great Eddie Merckx. He's looking still to attack when the conditions maybe don't quite suit a man. He usually waits for the time trial or the mountain. He did it downhill into Luchon. He's now doing it on the flat roads to Montpellier.
There is Thibaut Pinot, the polka dot jersey again. Now, Geraint Thomas has said, right, I've seen this. This is an opportunity. Look at the speed these riders are knocking out right now, Phil. We're looking 66 kilometers an hour. That's 42 miles an hour. BMC are the team that have been caught out a little bit. I don't think anybody would have expected Le Maillot Jaune, the yellow jersey, to go out like that. Katusha now on the offensive, trying to pull themselves back. Ethics Quickstep, you can see there in the black and blue jerseys. They're trying to nurse their man up there. And also you've got Dimension Data looking after their in there, hoping that it all comes back together.
Well, this brings back the conversation I had with a former yellow jersey in the Tour de France an hour before we came on air, Rolf Sorensen. He said today Quintana will lose the Tour de France, and I thought he must be going mad. But at the moment, Quintana's caught in that group, and every second counts. He really is locked in at the moment, while it's Peter Sagan and the yellow jersey try to drive it away.
I was just looking around that group there to see if there were any other riders from Movistar, but it looked to me as if all of a sudden Nairo Quintana was a little bit isolated, but none of the other contenders, Phil, could, I think, have expected that. There's Quintana there. He's looking around saying, hey, this is not good for me.
There are no Movistar riders there except Valverde further up the line.
Yeah, but he's fairly lucky that there's a number of riders trying to get themselves organised. But as you can see, they're only using half of the road, and that doesn't leave a lot of space left for everybody else to get any shelter or any respite from the wind.
Quintana has conceded 9 seconds at the moment, as now Chris Froome saying, look, he's prepared to work here with Peter Sagan. The face on Geraint Thomas, he's just hanging on to Chris Froome at the moment as they continue to drive as best they can. And it is Maciej Bodnar, who is the Tinkoff rider, helping.
Well, Race Radio is saying 8 seconds advantage. The computer saying 12 seconds advantage. This is pretty much unheard of to see a guy like Chris Froome go out on the attack on a stage like this. But it just goes to show, as we've said, Phil, since the start of this Tour de France, any day is a good opportunity. Now you can start to see they're beginning to get themselves organised, and the teams of the sprinters must start to think, wait, hey, we're getting this wrong right now. We're allowing a man who is the king of the mountains to get into a breakaway. There's Quintana. I just keep looking around. Where's his teammates? Where are the men to look after him?
They are, and I'll go back to Rolf Sorensen, who said his team will not be able to help him on a stage like this. And Quintana now is going to have to do it for himself. He's on the right of the picture there as he rides on the shoulders of the leader of the Lotto Jumbo team. And that rider is Bauke Mollema. Sorry. Is Wilco Kelderman, yeah.
Number 91, just in the middle there with the yellow helmet, red jersey. That is Richie Porte. And his teammate is up there alongside him as well, TJ Van Garderen. But the gap, Phil, Race Radio is now saying it's stretched out to 16 seconds. This is amazing.
It should have been anticipated, I think, but it hasn't been so far. But the gaps are there. Adam Yates is also in a spot of bother. He's caught back with Dan Martin as well as Rodriguez. Even further back, it's time gain across the board for favourites if they push this one home. Geraint Thomas is the only Sky rider able to go. And look at Peter Sagan, because he knows if he races away with these four, he wins the stage.
Yeah, but he will collaborate because this is a beautiful opportunity for him.
Terrific riding.
The wind is coming from the left-hand side. That's why you can see that diagonal line. Now, all of a sudden, you've got Giant Alpecin trying to wind it up. MTN Quebec as well. I don't think anybody expected this, but look at the speeds as we start to look at 7.5 kilometres to go to the finish. We are seeing speeds, again, Phil, notching up there to 70 kilometres an hour.
This is seconds. The way Froome is riding are going to hurt the Colombian rider. Froome's totally changed his approach to this year's race. The peloton behind are racing for 5th place, and that wasn't meant to be that way for the sprinters today.
Well, the 4 leaders, Phil, by the way, have just gone through the banner indicating 2 kilometres to go to the finish. And the fact is, you know, 2 riders from the same team on each breakaway group there means that they're never going to hold something back. You know you're in a tactically superb position. Geraint Thomas isn't thinking about winning the stage here this afternoon. He's thinking about gaining time for Chris Froome. The other rider in there as well, Bedoin, as they go to 1 kilometre to go.
They've closed it right in about 5 seconds, maybe 6.
Yep, but Phil, an extra 6 seconds time bonus there.
Yep.
The 6-second time bonus will give an 11-second gain on the day for Chris Froome. And just tell me one thing. Did you ever think that could be an outcome today?
I tell you what, Chris Froome today became a giant of the world of cycling. Not just using what he's good at, he's tried every which way, and so far it's worked.
Well, there you have the winner of the stage, and look at the damage that those final few kilometres have done here this afternoon, because that is some serious damage done in the flatter stage so far in the crosswinds. You really do have to learn that technique of riding in crosswinds on a day like this. Well, that was audacious, I have to say, as we see the gaps coming. 1 minute and 9 seconds lost there. Marcel Seeberger coming across the line in a day that we expected it to be for the sprinters. It was all about being attentive, all about being in, I mean, a look at the speed. So far, the fastest stage was 45 kilometres to Michael Matthews. It is now the average speed of today's stage, 47 kilometres an hour. Stage victory number 2 for Mr. Sagan. A brilliant ride by Peter Sagan, having his teammate up alongside him, Bedoin. And Chris Froome looks back to say, well, there we go. A few more seconds grabbed here and there, but more importantly, a few more seconds over all of the other contenders in the overall race of the Tour de France. But the day belongs to the man in green, the world champion, Peter Sagan, and now really dramatically extending his lead in that green jersey points competition. Well, we get that confirmation. I did not think that I would be calling second place for Chris Froome on a stage like today. Yes, Peter Sagan was one of the big favourites to get himself some points, but that was a very dramatic run in towards the finishing line.
Well, what a terrific day of racing, Paul. It really was. I take my hat off today to Chris Froome. He's a real champion of the Tour de France. And Sagan, what can you say about him, Matt Keenan?
Well, Phil, it looked as if Peter Sagan was trying to get the stage victory for his teammate, Matej Bedoin, but they just went too far from the finish line. Tinkoff today, phenomenal performance. Likewise, Team Sky, so entertaining. But you have to ask the question. Yes, it was entertaining, a small time gain for Chris Froome, but how much energy did he waste that he won't have tomorrow as they head up Mont Ventoux? We'll find out tomorrow whether he pays the price for his efforts today. But regardless of what the ultimate outcome is, Chris Froome has gone from being so-called boring and predictable to the most entertaining cyclist battling out for the yellow jersey at this year's Tour de France. He and Peter Sagan are riding a race in a similar sort of vein, consistently attacking. This is Frank Schleck now coming through with an average speed for the stage winner of 47.24 kilometres per hour. Always the sort of day that Frank Schleck didn't enjoy. And the fist pump from Matteo Desato, the man who started it all in the crosswinds. They got the stage victory. Second yesterday for Peter Sagan. First today. Extends his lead in the race for green. Kerienka also smiling from Team Sky as the King of the Mountains leader Thibaut Pinot works his way across the line. It was a tough day for Pinot. He was in the early crash and was consistently chasing. The beautiful old city of Montpellier that we now get a chance to enjoy. And this is part of the old city built in around the castle, the fortified walls that date back to the 11th century. Well, today there was no breaking the walls of Tinkoff. They controlled the final 19 kilometres. They were the ones that set the agenda very early on in the pace. The old Roman aqueduct. It eventually runs up to the Triumph Arch. This was built by King Charles VIII. As we take a look at the peloton, coming in across the finish line, Lee Howard in amongst them, who was in the initial breakaway today with the French national champion Arthur Vichot. Michael Matthews in this group, the winner of yesterday's stage. Daryl Impey also in the group, who took the yellow jersey here 3 years ago. And Luke Rowe was there from Team Sky, just discussing what happened throughout the day. George Bennett in the yellow colours of Lotto NL Jumbo, chatting with Rowan Dennis. There's Arthur Vichot at the back of the group, who was in the break with Lee Howard when things got started. Redo Hollenstein is the other right at the front for IM Cycling, riding alongside Lee Howard. This is one of the days where many of them would probably want to watch the highlights package because it was full of highlights. With Mont Ventoux being the destination, who has the best climbing legs is normally the main topic of conversation, but today all the talk is about the wind from Montpellier to the base of the famous giant of Provence. It'll be an enormous battle just to get there. Hello and welcome to stage 12 of the Tour de France. This is Matthew Keenan with you, and that's not quite the destination because the wind has had its stay. The stage has been ever so slightly shortened. They only go part way up Ventoux. Bastille Day, stage 12, and it starts at Montpellier, and it's a flat run throughout the start of the stage, but it is windswept. They then head into Provence. There are two small climbs as stepping stones to get towards Mont Ventoux. They don't quite go all the way to the top. They're stopping 6 kilometres short. It's a 178 kilometre stage. The finish line is the Chalet Reynard. And it has been modified, but this is the situation of the day. It has been an incredibly fast start to the stage. Breakaway group of 13. They have an advantage of 18 and a half minutes. And throughout the first hour of racing, they covered 74.8 kilometres. This is Danny Navarro going through to the front in the red colours of the Cofidis team. And he is the best placed overall from this breakaway group. 38th position, 33 minutes and 49 seconds behind the yellow jersey. Two riders in the breakaway for Dimension Data. At the back of the group, it's Serge Pals. And the Eritrean national champion, Daniel Teklahamanot, is also in this group. He has a chance to make history today, Daniel, as the first Eritrean to be a stage winner at the Tour de France. This is the chasing group of 5. Tom Yelter-Slachter from the Cannondale squad. Voss from Bora Argonne 18. It's Goutier from AG Tour Le Mondial. Preidler in the of the Giant Alpecin team. Diego Rosa is the man who is there for Astana. Last time check on these riders, it had them pinned at around about 5 minutes. 5 minutes and 48 seconds according to the official. 5 minutes and according to the official Tour tracker, which is courtesy of Dimension Data, showing us exactly what they can do away from the bike, because they've shown us what they can do on the bike, and it has been impressive. Well, they made their way past Nîmes earlier on the stage today, and they have been going incredibly quickly throughout today's stage. They've gotten a little bit further on as we look at the Chateau Beaucaire. It's on the banks of the Rhone. It was built in 1216, at least that's when the construction of it started. And it was a powerful fortress overlooking the town. But it was taken following a 13-week siege by Simon de Montfort. It was rebuilt during the reign of King Louis IX. And the fortification, the walls, they were pulled down in 1632 and opened things up to the town that sits below it. It's a shame that they've gone so quickly, so we've missed out on a chance of seeing the beautiful city of Nîmes with its wonderful Roman architecture, including the big stadium in the centre of town, which used to hold 25,000 spectators, the old Colosseum. And there used to be the fights between the animals and the gladiators. Today it's still a major venue for shows, bullfighting, and was also the scene for a finish of a few stages of the Tour de France. The Chateau de Rennais that we're now getting a chance to take a look at, that sits on the other side of the Rhône. A wonderful looking building. Louis Daigneau was the one that was the governor of Languedoc that constructed this building. Actually took it away from Queen Joanna. Seized powers of the region as a result of getting his hands on that chateau. One of the best preserved medieval castles in France. Peloton being led now by Team Sky, and it's Ian Stannard who was on the front, and didn't they have an outstanding day on the roads yesterday to Montpellier. More of a presence of Movistar at the front today. I wonder if they were licking their wounds yesterday. This is Bert-Jan Lindemann, number 54, at the back of the group. One of two riders in the move for Lotto NL Jumbo. The other one is Sepp van Mark, specialist for the Spring Classics. Bert-Jan Lindemann did win a mountain stage of last year's Volta a España as a result of getting in a big early breakaway. It's hard to pick the favourite from that leading group. No pure climbers at the front of the race. Perhaps the closest is Daniel Tekla-Hamanots. Thomas de Gent in the red colours, another breakaway for him. Let's not forget that he's been a stage winner at the Giro d'Italia over the Stelvio, one of the biggest climbs in cycling in terms of altitude that it goes to, and one of the most feared. And has also finished third at the Tour of Italy. So Thomas de Gent, when he gets his nose in front, he can be tough to beat. Two riders from Lotto, two from Dimension Data, two from Lotto NL Jumbo. And the crosswinds are now starting to have an impact on the peloton. Thibaut Pinot at the back of the race in the polka dot jersey. It's edX Quickstep along with Sky who get things started. This is a lot further back down the road than 84 kilometres to go. This is more like 97 kilometres to go that this group is making their way through. And we're a long way from the base of the mountain for the big contenders for the yellow jersey in this year's tour. The racing is already on. Reminiscent of what we saw yesterday's Fabian Cancellara leads Trek Segafredo around the right-hand side of the peloton, positioning Bauke Mollema at the front. And that is a small group. There's a split, and you can see the pink and blue colours of lamprey. And I fear for the South Africans tuning in that Louis Meintjes once again has missed the split. The young South African sitting in second place in the race for the white jersey, just outside the top 10 overall. He conceded a small chunk of time on the stage yesterday. He also had Peter Sagan in his group. It's an early battle for position. The Dutch national champion, Dylan Groenewegen, is in this contingent of riders. So too the French national champion, Arthur Vichot. The Polish national champion is just behind him, and the Norwegian national champion, Edvald Bosenhagen. He had high hopes for this stage, Thibaut Pinot. They're dashed already, I fear. He's got the Kiwi, Greg Henderson, sitting behind him. The brilliance and the art of racing in the crosswind. Team Sky have nailed it in this year's Tour de France. Movistar really need to make sure they protected Nairo Quintana a lot better today than what they did yesterday. Quite a few red jerseys with the yellow helmets on from BMC. The leaders of the team's classification have been caught behind the split. The two men they need to protect, Richie Porte and TJ Van Garderen. And nerves were a little frayed at the BMC bus yesterday after the stage. Number 32, the wearer of the green jersey, Peter Sagan. He's smiling in his profile shot, just as he did on the podium yesterday when he collected his second stage victory for this year at the Tour. The 6th in his career. Not super concerned about today's stage. He said beforehand that really today should be more like a rest day for him. Simon Gerrans coming through to the front for Orica Bike Exchange. It's then Chris Froome, Tony Martin in the blue colours. Marcus Burkhardt behind him from BMC. And there's Nairo Quintana. The roll call has been taken and he's right at the front of the classroom, ready to answer the teacher's questions. It was a good day yesterday for Dan Martin from edX Quickstep. He defended his place at the front as they were racing through the crosswind, and he thanked Tony Martin for his support. We return to the breakaway group. In the black colours from the Fortunato Vital Concept team, the former Danish national champion Chris Anker Sorensen. Coquard goes through for Direct Energy. Serge Pauls in the white colours of Dimension Data. This is De Gent, the next one through, followed by Greipel, Chavanel. Sur Limois is the other rider here from Cofidis. Tekla Humanor at the back of the group. In the blue colours, Ilio Kaiser. Steph Clement is the rider who is for the Swiss team, IM Cycling. I had lunch with Rolf Sorensen today about it finishing 6 kilometres earlier. I thought he's a man whose brain is a good one to pick. He's firmly the view that's actually to the favour of Nairo Quintana, because once you get that last 6 kilometres, it's open road, often a headwind, that would nullify the attacks. Do you agree with him?
He's absolutely correct. That was always the hardest thing about the last 6 kilometres of the Mont Ventoux. It's not all that steep, but it's incredibly windy. So it's hard to get anybody out of your wheel. Further down below the tree line, where it's a bit more protected, steeper slopes, it's down to the rider and how fast they can climb. The wind doesn't have as much of an influence on the race down there. So that is a good thing for Nairo Quintana. But he's got to have the legs to be able to attack Chris Froome, obviously.
The theories are wonderful. Putting them into practice is a lot more difficult. 1 kilometre to the intermediate sprint. This has popped up so quickly. No riders in this group who are a real challenge, with the exception of Brian Coquard for the green jersey, who will want to be improving his position. He's currently in 6th place. He's 197 points behind Peter Sagan.
But he could move himself up to 4th place in that competition by taking 20 points at this intermediate sprint. So he'll leapfrog the 2 riders just in front of him, which is Greg Van Avermaet and Michael Matthews.
And he's got Andre Greipel in here, and I'm not sure Andre Greipel is going to worry too much about the points, as he's in 7th place. He's at 210 points behind Peter Sagan. Will he bother?
Well, they're finishing on the Mont Ventoux at Chalet Renard. Andre Greipel will be thinking, I'm probably going to finish around 12th or 13th out of this 13-man group, and he might want to try and get something out of the stage. Looking not to get boxed in, and there he goes.
Others want to get a bit out of the stage as well. Bert-Jan Lindemann is moving up the right side.
It's
Ilio Kaiser is leading out. Greipel now steps through. A little bit difficult to tell from that angle, but what we do know from the flags on the side of the road is that it's incredibly windy.
I'm quite surprised to see Andre Greipel get himself boxed in on that occasion. He got to the front a little bit too soon, and it was the track specialist Ilio Kaiser, winner of the final stage in the Giro d'Italia last year, who hit out, and we'll have to wait for the official result. There's a throw for the line by both of those riders. Coquard, he was too late. He gave up, ran 4th across the line. And it was Lindemann who was always also up amongst there, and also probably just thinking, I'll try and get something out of this stage, not rating himself as a climber.
Story today from Rolf Sorensen, who was in the race, as to how the breakaway happened. It was an aggressive start to the stage, and a lot of the sprinters teams had the conversation, let's take it easy early and let everybody race up. And then Eros Polly, one of the enforcers, he got frustrated. He said, you want to race, you want to attack, this is how you do it. And he went off the front, looked over his shoulder and had a gap and thought, I might go on with it.
Well, as you said, he lost a minute per kilometre. The climb's 21 kilometres long, had 3 left at the top, and soloed down to a Tour de France stage win in a most unlikely stage for a guy who weighed well over 90 kilos. A very big man, Eros Polly. You'd think he was a basketballer playing dress-up as a cyclist if you'd seen him.
And he's married to a Tasmanian.
Spent quite a lot of time in the gruppettos with Eros in my first couple of tours, along with Henk Vogels and Stuart O'Grady and Magnus Backstead, all teammates at the GAN team at that time.
This is Paul Voss.
How unlucky was Voss today?
Stuck in the middle in the group, mechanical, stuck in the middle. Back now, though, with the yellow jersey group of Chris Froome. Been taken up this climb by Simon Gerrans. Good signs for Simon Gerrans, looking forward to the Olympic Games in Rio.
Well, hopefully looking forward to something in the rest of this tour as well. And we expected Simon Gerrans maybe in Cherbourg on stage 2, possibly the sprint to Limoges where Marcel Kittel won that uphill run to the line, but a bit too in favour of the sprinters there. Possibly Le Lioran, but that was won by Greg Van Avermaet in a long break. But Simon Gerrans, he'll certainly be planning to try and match what Michael Matthews did the other day and get himself another stage win in the Tour de France.
Stage 16, a breakaway from Simon Gerrans, a chance to win. This is Preidler now, the Austrian, about to be caught by the Gerrans-led group. He was another one of the men in that group of 5 that was stuck in the middle. So the good news from that is for Fabio Aru, his teammate Diego Rosa will be caught fairly soon as well. That's Borat Bozic going out the back. This is Marco Heller, struggling to claw his way to the top of this climb, and if he can survive to the top, then he'll be able to do the rest of the job required to protect Joaquin Rodriguez to the bottom of Mont Ventoux. Good climber, Preidler. He rode well at the Giro d'Italia with a couple of near misses.
Now, Matt, people who are looking at the profile of this stage, they'll be looking at the climb of the Mont Ventoux, and in the book it says it's 15.7 kilometres as they now come over the top of that Category 3 climb led by Simon Gerrans. Looking at the book, the official race book says the Mont Ventoux is 15.7 kilometres at 8.8%. A moment ago, you heard me say it's 21 kilometres long. The race book says that the climb starts in Saint-Estève. No, it starts from Bedoin. That's where the road starts to go up, and believe me, it climbs out of Bedoin, and everybody in the bunch will tell you it is 21 kilometres long. So the actual climb they will do today to the Chalet in kilometres, the average 8.8%. Well, the top 6 kilometres aren't as steep anymore as the rest, so the average will be over 9% for the climb to Chalet Renard. I've been asked what sort of gear ratios the riders will be using today. Generally 39 front inside chainring, and on the back they'll probably have up to 25, but the best climbers, they won't be touching that. They'll be riding up in the 19, the 21, possibly someone who rides a really high cadence might get in the 23 for a while. The sprinters, they would have asked the mechanic to please put on a 27 or a 28 so they can ride up as easy as possible. So now see Andre Greipel getting back onto that front group, and expect him to go to the front and drive the pace.
This is the leading group of 13. Andre Greipel putting in an enormous amount of work to support Thomas de Gendt, as we say. Diego Rosa now from Astana being caught by the Gerrans-led group. Diego Rosa, the first thing he will do is find Fabio Aru and see how he's going. He's sacrificed himself plenty of times in the past, Simon Gerrans, including when he was at Team Sky and working for the likes of Bradley Wiggins. This is Matty Breschel in the green colours of Cannondale Drapac. Their hopes today rest on the shoulders of Pierre Rolland, but I don't like his chances. He's won some big stages in the past, Pierre Rolland, but never going head-to-head with the world's best climbers. It's normally been through getting into a breakaway. Life is all about timing. We do apologise for the timing. The Merckx piece coinciding with the crash. Simon Gerrans going down, and a large contingent of riders from Team Sky. And Chris Froome himself has gone to the front to call it off, and the rest of the group is slowing down. But that also provides the opportunity for the second group with Louis Meintjes, Warren Barguil, and a whole host of others who missed the split in the crosswind. This is Ian Stannard.
And here is that chase group led by Giant Alpecin for Warren Barguil, so they look like they will get back on. Well, one man's misfortune is another man's gain. Unfortunately, Simon Guerin's the one to go down as he led into a tight left-hand bend. Skyrider's going over the top of him. Look, complete truce at the front. Chris Froome said to everybody, we have to stop, we have to wait. He actually took the chance to have another nature break, and he'll pedal his way back on, as it looks like also the chase group will do, and everything will come back together for the foot of the Ventoux. Let's just hope those riders are okay to continue. There's no broken bones.
It shows how quickly things can change. And he's in yellow. He's won it twice before, but nothing is secured for Chris Froome. And that fall by Simon Guerin, he's a brilliant bike handler. He did motocross as a kid, speedway racing, the whole lot. He's accustomed to going sideways. I can't help but think that the wind played a big part in that crash.
Let's have a look. And the front wheel washes out even before he had a lot of pressure on it. He really didn't have it leaned in all that much. We'll get another look from the motorbike. It is very windy, but just as he starts to tip into the corner, even before he gets into the tightest part of the corner, he was gone. So makes me wonder if there was maybe something on the road, a little bit of oil, quite possibly. Didn't get to see the road surface there. Sometimes you feel when you're going and you can almost soak it up a bit. Simon Guerin's had no idea what hit him. And neither did the guys behind. No time to react. Stannard straight over the top.
He's had a lot of crashes in the last 2 years, Simon Guerin's. And what does that do to his hopes at the Olympic Games that only moments ago we were speaking about?
Well, the hopes of Olympics and the hopes of doing something more for himself in this race, and let's hope he's okay. Went down very heavily on his shoulder, and he's had a number of broken collarbones before. This is Brian Coquard, and he has been, by the looks of things, dropped out of that front group. But Coquard wasn't one of the favourites to win on the Ventoux. To Chalet Renard out of that front group. Just behind it,
he is one of the favourites, though, for using the most hair product. He's always got the wonderful coif. He and Marcel Kittel. We do like Brian Coquard, the way he races. He's entertaining, he sprints with great tenacity, and look how strong the wind is. And Andre Greipel ducking the head, getting as aerodynamic as he can for what shelter is on offer from Serge Pals. This is an echelon. This is from the left-hand side of the road all the way into the gutter, and this is only a small group of 13.
Watch the subtle change in body language when each rider hits the front. They sort of duck their head a little bit. Thomas de Hent right on cue. Thank you, Thomas. Trying to just force their way into the wind, get a little more aerodynamic and just a tighter hold on those handlebars and really try and be rock solid on the bike. Because like I said about a week or so ago when we were in Normandy, and it's even more true today than it was then, it's windy enough to blow off your beret.
It's done that today to Simon Guerin's, unfortunately for him. Still a lot of calm within this group. I wonder how long that will last. Once they get to that section that we just saw the lead group go through, where it was really windy, it's much harder to contain it there. And here comes the group returning. Fabian Cancellara, Arthur Vichot, and the rest of the riders from FDJ, along with the polka dot jersey of Thibaut Pinot, a long way back. But here come the pink and blue colours of Louis Meintjes from Lamprey. He's back in the hunt for white. It's worked out well for Louis.
Nobody wants to see anybody else crash, but in a way they'll be thinking, this is our lucky day.
Tailwind to the base of the climb, and then we'll see what happens in those trees. Somebody's going to have to jump because they're not all climbers in this group.
Well, this, in fact, now for the leading group of riders that we're looking at, Phil, they are just coming into Bedoin, and for every cyclist, they always really regard this as the start of the climb proper. Once you move away from Bedoin, most people regard this as their gateway to the climb of Mont Ventoux.
Yes, the very name strikes fear into the hearts of the non-climbers in the Tour de France.
16 kilometers, 10 miles of racing in old money. That is the leading group of contenders who are now in second position on the road as they too now start to line themselves up. But here in Bedoin, which is a very attractive Provençal market town, the wine growers of Bedoin cultivate approximately 800 hectares of vines, and this of course is known as the Côte de Ventoux. And as I mentioned earlier, Eric Carretou, a former two-time winner of the Vuelta a España, has his own vineyard just down towards the slopes of the climb here. It's very much an interesting area from the characteristics, not only of the climate in this part of the world, but also the geological characteristics too, because the ground here is very dry, very sandy, and it drains very, very quickly. The nod's obviously going out now. I can see Tinkoff starting to look after Roman Kreuziger. He's the third place rider in that line of Tinkoff riders there. He's got a slightly different band around the middle. He's the champion. Look at the wind there. The flags there you can see is really coming to be a block headwind. But fortunately for the riders, once they get into the forest at the bottom, they reach the steep gradients of the climb, but then they will get some respite from the wind. Amazing crowds here for the leading group of riders. Let's not forget, it is a big day for France. There was a huge parade on the Champs-Élysées this morning with the French patrolling and parading all of their military wares on the Champs-Élysées on a very special day. Tonight, in some of the most beautiful parts of France, there will be massive firework displays. In fact, the town where we left from a couple of days ago, Carcassonne, has one of the most beautiful fireworks displays in the whole of France. And unfortunately, we're moving away from that. Back with the leaders now, as they haven't yet quite got there. There's 20 kilometers, 12.5 miles to go to the finishing line. And this is the sort of damage that's happening at the back. Everyone now trying to position their leaders in a good position as they get themselves ready for the climb. Movistar, well, I'm sure this has got to be an important day for Nairo Quintana. He's moving into his terrain. Now, there's the first move. Now that is pretty daring, because that is the sprinter. Now what a story that would be if Andre Greipel could create the surprise here this afternoon. The sprinter, Andre Greipel, has gone out on the attack. He knows what's in store, but you know, Andre Greipel has won stages in breakaways like this before.
Well, I think we should have predicted this. Andre Greipel can't climb, but he's going to make the riders chase him and soften them up for Thomas de Gent.
Well, you know, it's quite funny, Phil, because very often we always talk about sprinters like Mark Cavendish, like Andre Greipel not being attacking riders. But if you cast your mind back to last year, Andre Greipel won in a solo breakaway like this in the Tour of Luxembourg, when everybody thought he was going to wait for the final sprint of the day. They need to respond to a move like this, because Andre Greipel, well, he is laying down the foundations, I think, for an attack later on from Thomas de Gent, but a brave move for a sprinter.
A brave move, and let's remember his nickname. It's a gorilla, and gorillas live in mountainous terrain in Rwanda.
Yeah, but there's a lot more forest in Rwanda than there is on the slopes of the Mont Ventoux, which has been deforested over the years. And one of the reasons it was deforested, by the way, was they took all of the trees down to make ships down in Toulon.
So Greipel's gone. The peloton behind, the 11 men he's left behind are just giving him distance here. They're going to let the climb itself probably bring him back towards them. It's the Cofidis rider, Daniel Navarro, a possible winner on the front. Third man is the man who hopes to win the stage. Remember, he almost did on stage 4 into Lorient when he got second place to Greg van Avermaet, and that is Thomas de Gent.
Well, I've got to tell you, Phil, I've got a big smile all over my face here, because I think that is a very interesting move by Andre Greipel. It's great to see a sprinter doing something like this, showing no fear at all of what is ahead. He knows in the back of his mind what sort of pain he is about to go through, but he still had the audacity to go out and make a move like this.
What do you think of this move, Jens Voigt, by Andre?
Well, I guess Andre was watching Chris Froome closely the other day, thought, hey, what he can do, I can do twice. So now we see Chris Froome being on a podium on a sprinter stage, and Andre Greipel goes, okay, I'm going to show you. I'm going to be on a podium and a mountaintop finish. So I keep my fingers crossed for him. I think that's a great move. He goes, hey, you know what? If I can't win in a sprint, I might as well win on a Mont Ventoux. The chances to win are very small, but I just love it. It's just great for the show.
Totally agree with you, and he's off and he's out of sight at the moment, as we're looking here at the German flag flying there as well.
Well, I think at the end of the day, Phil, although it's a great show from Andre Greipel, what he's trying to do is toughen up the chase behind and lay down the foundations for his teammate, because Lotto Soudal have got 2 riders in that group, and obviously Thomas de Gent would like to win the stage.
Well, take a look at the boys from Movistar. They're trying to toughen up the race back there, which is for the yellow jersey and the next wearer of it. Remember, Chris Froome leads by only 28 seconds over his British countryman Adam Yates, and Quintana, which is why those boys are working hard, is looking for just 35 seconds. Well, Mont Ventoux can look down on the Tour de France today, knowing that the riders aren't going to quite reach that observatory on the top. There's the gaps for you, 8:29. Well, there's no worries now, Paul. The peloton are not going to latch up with those 12 front runners.
No, but I think a couple of riders will be happy to have recovered. Louis Meintjes and Warren Barguil. You can just see from the graphic that there's a green and a polka dot sign up there, and that is to indicate that Peter Sagan never got back into this group because of the long chase, and neither too did Thibaut Pinot, the leader in the King of the Mountains competition. In this group, though, Phil, there is still the battle, because these guys are battling for seconds.
Rui Costa, who was up there early in the chase group, now coming back. His day is done. And this is beginning to split up now. The pressure going on here, and it's being put on by Française de Jeu. Well, no, in fact, these boys have been split off the back. Our camera's coming through. One by one, there's some names being dropped off the back. Rui Costa was the first to go. And that looks to me as though we've also got Matthias Frank, I think it was, Paul, that just went off the back there as well.
Well, that's a bit of a surprise, because Matthias Frank was regarded as a man who could probably ride well in this race, but I think he's still struggling to get over the illness that he had in the Tour of Switzerland. There is Andre Greipel, and the fact that we can see him so closely means the group is closing in.
The French flag flying proudly on Bastille Day. Fireworks will be tonight around midnight all over France. There might be some fireworks here in a few minutes. Fabian Cancellara for Trek Segafredo coming up into second wheel there.
Well, everybody now, Phil, in this group that we're looking at, the contenders to win the Tour de France overall, are making sure that they look after their team leaders, and Fabian Cancellara was looking after the position of Bauke Mollema.
Yes, Bauke Mollema is in 5th place overall in this race, and we've hardly seen him, so he's playing very, very cleverly against the big names on this race.
Well, as you can see now, as we look at the flags, and it's still an incredibly blustery wind. This is at the bottom of the climb before we really get into the forested part of the Mont Ventoux. Oh, the problem here. Well, I didn't get a chance to see, but that was one of the riders from Astana who had a mechanical problem.
I think it was Sanchez, but he was in the shadow of the trees there.
Well, in fact, it was Vincenzo Nibali in person who had a problem. He's looking down. He's looking for the team car as well, but the big problem is, it looks as if he's got something wrapped up in his back wheel there, and Vincenzo Nibali will have a long way. Well, all of a sudden, back with the leaders here. Andre Greipel was on the attack. Now he's being caught and passed by the rest of the group, and maybe and hopefully for him, he's done enough to lay down the foundations for a victory for his teammate, Thomas de Gent. Meanwhile, Trek Segafredo, they're thinking about their team leader, Bauke Mollema. As we said, they're lying in 5th place in the overall standings. 10 kilometers to go for the leaders, but the main group there is, in fact, only just going through the town of Bedoin. Alaphilippe. Yep, he's here to learn this year. He was very aggressive in the first few days of the race. Now we're starting to see the leading group splinter as well. Ilio Kaiser, he's more of a sprinter, a very good track rider, part of the lead-out train for Marcel Kittel. He has also now been left behind by that leading group. A sort of a quiet moment now as the final few moments before they really start to open up the gas and do the damage between the overall contenders. A brief reminder as we go into this big climb here. Chris Froome has a 28-second advantage over Adam Yates, 31-second advantage over Dan Martin, and 35 seconds over Nairo Quintana. But there is only just about a minute still separating the first 9 riders in the overall standings, with TJ Van Garderen 9th at a minute 13. And there will be bigger time gaps tonight, but the question is, which way are they going to go? Is Nairo Quintana, the Colombian climber from Tunja, finally going to light the blue touch paper on Bastille Day and set off the fireworks? Because this is his terrain, and this is the moment when he needs to really start to move a little closer to Chris Froome if he wants to dream about going better than his 2 second places. So the leading group now down to 11 riders, 10 kilometers to go. That's Chris Anker Sorensen just down towards the back there, nodding his head around, a rider who for many years was a stalwart for Team CSC. Come across to this team now with Fortuneo as the captain of the team, as we get a chance there to look up. 9.8 kilometers to the summit of the Mont Ventoux, and now it's not exactly the real top of the climb because of these climatic conditions. We're finishing at the Chalet Renard, which itself is a base for a ski station partway up the climb. At 6 kilometers to go to the top. Just looking, Danny Navarro seems to be the... No, it's not Danny Navarro. In fact, it's the red jersey. Well, in fact, Thomas de Kent now takes up the pacemaking. Chris Anker Sorensen has lost contact. Well, Danny Navarro...
Yep,
he's gone off the back now. That's a bit of a surprise to me, because
Cyril Limon.
Oh well, that's
so the surprise
that would have been a surprise. Yeah, well, I was just looking for the red jerseys. We look at the climb here, Phil. 9.7 kilometers. Today we climb up to just inside of 5,000 feet. 9.4% is the average gradient, but because of the shortened nature of the stage today, the maximum gradients are 12.3%. As more and more riders are seriously in trouble.
Well, this is it now, and this is Chavanel going off the back as well, quickly followed by Steph Clement, the Dutchman, and now round the corner. In fact, Chavanel wants to try and get back into here, but the men we expected are going forward. Serge Powell's going forward. Daniel Navarro is going forward. The men who we think might get into it, Thomas de Gent is up there as well. Remember, if de Gent wins the stage, he takes the lead in the King of the Mountains, which for him is a big target.
Yes, Daniel Tekla-Hymenot is also in contact with that leading group, the double national champion of Eritrea, as Chavanel just trying to find his rhythm. I can tell you, Phil, from remembrance, this is a very nasty side to the climb. These first kilometers are really painful, but I mean, I don't think I've ever seen such an incredible climb. Maybe the crowd has been concentrated because they've come down 6 kilometers.
I guess they've walked down to join the race lower down. They've been parked up on top for a week. But Tekla-Hymenot is going off the back as well. Well, life is down the peloton here at the moment. After all of that hard work, Tom Dumoulin sat at the back now. He had to bring his teammate back up earlier. Warren Barguil.
Well, this is Marcus Burkhardt on the front. You see the Swiss flag around his sleeves there, a former champion of Switzerland. He's been setting the pace for his 2 leaders, Van Garderen and Richie Porte.
Well, just the pure climbers are left here. We're watching Bert-Jan Lindemann holding on to them in his first Tour de France. This is Fabian Cancellara slipping away.
Yep, his job done as well there. He really was trying to set the pace, a very, very hard pace that he was setting, as we see more and more riders slipping away. Van has been dropped, the former leader of this race. Michael Shaw slipping away as well. This is Roland.
Well, Pierre Roland, who is earning at least all the respect of his team for the way he's riding after his crash, is going early enough to try and get away. But there's no way he can get to the front now as we race into Sainte-Colombe, which is part of the Bedoin district. 7 minutes the gap to those front runners now.
You just look at the style of these riders at the back. They're all struggling. They're all concentrating on the back wheel of the rider in front of them, hoping they can stay in contact for a kilometre or so longer. Now we're not at all surprised to see the control going back to Team Sky once again.
They're not going to initially react to this move here because Pierre Roland isn't going to win the stage and isn't going to take over the leadership of the Tour because he's over 5 minutes behind Chris Froome overall. One by one, the mountain bites.
Well, that was Lindemann going backwards there as we move forward. I tell you what, Thomas de Gent is doing a phenomenal ride. That's de Gent just around the corner there, and they did set this up with that attack by Andre Greipel, but responding, another Belgium in second position there, Serge Pauwels.
Well, this is amazing for the Belgians in the mountains competition this year. It really is. This is the race, remember, for the yellow jersey. It is up to Nairo Quintana to stop following the back wheel of Chris Froome, and I'm not sure he can do that.
Well, once we get to the steeper the slopes of the climb, we will see Pierre Roland has made that move, but he's not really opened up the gap. One by one, riders from Movistar are slipping away. That's Gorka Izagirre. He's slipping off the back.
Yes, and also Ruben Platz is going there. Orica Bike Exchange, he's a climber, but he's gone. It's been a steady pace all of the day, this one. This is Frank Schleck, number 65. It looks as though the rope's running out there as well.
Well, Schleck, I mean, when you think about how hard this stage has been, Phil, it's been rapid since the very get-go. As we go back to Vasil Kirienka, world time trial champion, he will set the pace, and this is modus operandi for Team Sky. They just set the pace, a hard pace, and try and put everybody else into difficulty.
Serge Pauwels, well, remember, Dimension Dates are living a dream in their first Tour de France because they won 4 stages in the opening week of the race. And Pierre Roland has come back. The relentless pacemaking of the world time trial champion, Vasily Kirienka. We might see why he is tomorrow, of course. We have the time trial tomorrow. Showing only 4.5 miles now.
Well, all of a sudden, Thomas de Gent, who looked like he had his legs on fire here this afternoon, has been put in difficulty by the acceleration of another Belgian. Serge Pauwels has made the move, but he's still very much in contact with him. The rider who managed to make the move across there was Dani Navarro, the Spanish rider on Team Cofidis.
4.4 miles to go, and I don't know whether the kilometre kite has been erected, so it could be still way up the mountain. So they may not have any indication when the finish is coming. But these boys are experienced. They'll have raced up this road before. Serge Pauwels is now zigzagging around, and Navarro knows it's his best chance. Now, he's not French, but he rides on a French team. They'd count that on Bastille Day.
Well, the funny thing is, Phil, casting our mind back to the last French winner on Bastille Day, 2005, was David Moncoutier, and he rode for Team Cofidis.
He did, and he's on the race here. He's with some of the publicity people on Vittel. But Pauwels is a very good climber. I can only imagine the management of Dimension Dart are getting a little excited at the moment.
The funny thing about the rider on the front, Serge Pauwels, who was stamping out a pretty impressive rhythm there, Phil. It's bye-bye to Vasil Kirienka. Serge Pauwels has only ever won 1 race in his career, as far as I can go back. And that, in fact, was a stage of the Giro d'Italia back in 2009.
Well, 6 minutes 56. The break should survive because we're not sure what we think. They've only got 6.8 kilometres to go.
This is Mikel Landa now. He's had an up and down Tour de France as well, but when the crunch time comes, he seems to be riding himself back in to be one of the serious lieutenants for Chris Froome.
That's Luis Leon Sanchez just gone as well there for Astana. He's had a couple of days of falls as well. Zubeldia, not quite the oldest man in the race, that's Tessato. He's gone off the back, and this is a superb demonstration by Serge Pauwels. If Dimension Data turn this one around with victory on Mont Ventoux, well, they won't believe it.
Well, it'll keep the average going pretty well for them, Phil, because that'll make 6 victories out of 12 stages so far. Can they actually really dream that they're going to win another stage here on the Mont Ventoux? But the damage again being done at the back. In the dark blue and green jersey, just waiting, but further up the slopes, still with around about a 7-minute advantage.
This is Jorlinson Pantano here. He's going from the front for I Am Cycling. He's a Colombian climber, and he's not going to be a marked man here, although they look to me as though they're coming after him.
Well, I didn't see it. It looked, well, it was definitely a Movistar rider was making the response.
It's not. It's Valverde. Yeah, it's Valverde, and this is a good move for Valverde, but not for the team. We'll see.
Well, Alejandro Valverde, you know, he's still in 8th place in the overall standings. And maybe Team Sky are not concerned about a move coming from Alejandro Valverde, but Valverde is throwing down the gauntlet. He's trying to cause Team Sky to lift the pace a fraction, and what he's trying to do is make the race tougher for a later attack to come from Quintana.
It could well be the case. Now, Valverde himself is only 56 seconds off the yellow jersey of Froome. So he needs to win by 57 to pull on yellow, and they're reacting.
Well, I tell you what, Phil, I think half of Colombia have come out to the Mont Ventoux, because I don't think I've ever seen quite so many Colombian flags at the side of the road. And now number 9 is struggling. Geraint Thomas is in difficulty.
Now, this is Valverde here, continuing to put on the pressure, trying to draw the sting of Sky, trying to make Sky chase him, otherwise he will get yellow. But his real reason, as Paul Sherman has said, is to soften them up, so perhaps Quintana can have a real go today as we close in on the finish. 3.6 miles still to go.
Well, further up the slope, these two riders going at mano a mano, man against man on these slopes now. They're looking at around about 6 kilometers to go. The man on the left-hand side, Serge Pauwels of Belgium, he just has not been able to put any time between himself and the rider who wears number 191, Danny Navarro of Cofidis.
The crowds have had to walk down from the top of Mont Ventoux. They've had to walk down 6 kilometers to find the race on the Tour de France. And all of them have packed in on this forested road towards Chaly-Reynard. And the battle after battle. Nieve is now gone. He was the early pacemaker for Sky. Done his job and now moves out of it. One by one, they are dropping away here. This is Pierre Rolland. He tried an attack, it didn't work. He's paying for it.
But the reason is Alejandro Valverde went out on the attack, and he's trying to put pressure onto Team Sky. He's trying to isolate Chris Froome for when they get further up the slopes. What a racer this man is. You know, 3rd overall in the Giro d'Italia this year, and he's used moves like this in the past to help his young teammate Nairo Quintana. He did the same thing last year on the Alpe d'Huez.
But they didn't panic, and that's the whole thing. They just kept the rhythm. They didn't unleash anything, and they've gone back. Louis Meintjes, 157, the youngster, has got himself back onto the tail of Adam Yates. They're the top 2 riders in that white jersey competition.
Well, when you make a move at the start of the climb, as Pierre Rolland did, if you go too much into the red zone, all of a sudden you can't recover anymore. There's still 3 teams. Now the move from Quintana.
This is it. Now where's the reaction from Chris Froome? Because he'll have to go himself. Froome himself has picked up that pedalling cadence, but this time Quintana knows he's got to put some seconds back in the bank.
One of the greatest climbers in the world. He was given a lot of freedom by the team to prepare for the Tour de France, and he's waited for the moment. I think he's waited for the incline. This is a very steep part of the climb, around about 10%. But he's not opening the gap just yet.
We are 12 days into the Tour de France, and this is the first time we've seen the man from Colombia attack. Now, before this race started, he said the 3rd week of the Tour is when he will try to win it, but he's had to make this move.
And I'm just having a look behind. In fact, he's being chased by a Colombian, but this Colombian is a teammate of Chris Froome. That's Sergio Henao. And another little acceleration. He's seen the damage, looks over the shoulders to look into the face of the other riders with him, while Sergio Henao waits back, I think, there for Chris Froome.
Well, the reaction has not come yet from Chris Froome. It's not looking like the Chris Froome of yesterday or the man who was in the Pyrenees. The gap is there, and can he kick again? Quintana's going to try. He's wondering why Froome hasn't joined him behind.
He's just looking to see the damage. He's trying to ascertain what is going on in this race. It's now Walter Poels now comes forward, and he will start to set the tempo. Look at him, his mouth wide open. Richie Porte has moved up onto the wheel of Chris Froome. If anybody knows Chris Froome, it's Richie Porte. For years, he was a teammate. He was the man who helped Chris Froome win his early tours.
Well, the riders continue to drop away. The battle starts, but the real battle is with the yellow jersey, who's finally countered that attack as he's come up. Now, we've got the workhorse. Henao and Wout Poels are the two Sky riders. Right behind is the two men who are in the Tour de France victory. Warren Barguil, by the way, is slipping away at the back of the race. I think that chase has hurt him just a little bit too much.
Well, it's a bit tough here because when we get the information of 5 kilometres to go, it's 5 kilometres to go, Phil, for the leading group of riders. While further back, these guys have got a long time still in the saddle. And what is interesting is Thomas de Gent has recovered and ridden himself through that bad patch and got himself back into the leading group, which is now 3 men strong.
Now another move by Nairo Quintana as he starts to kick again. You know, Froome looks down and really grits his teeth just now. Quintana tried to open a gap. Wout Poels is fantastic. He was involved in that crash.
But bear in mind, Phil, they do not want to respond to these accelerations. Team Sky's tactic is to ride at a steady tempo. They know what wattage they want to put out, and they will just ride steadily and see whether they can slowly drag themselves back up to Nairo Quintana.
I'm not sure how much longer Wout Poels can do this. It's tremendous riding by Wout Poels, Jens Voigt. Sorry, Jens, I'm saying we're just watching Wout Poels here give everything here, having been involved in that crash.
Well, as far as I could see, Nairo Quintana, I believe, is still testing. He is not on his limit yet. He's still testing, looking back, checking what the others do. And Wout Poels didn't look like he's reacting immediately. So I think Quintana's having a fair chance of dropping another Sky rider with his next attack, and then hopefully manage to gain some time back for him in the GC, because tomorrow is the time trial and he would love to have a little bit of time back on Chris Froome.
Yeah, but Jens, the big problem that the climbers have, I think, today is the fact that they're actually climbing into a headwind. Most of the real pure climbers, they like to climb with a tailwind because they can actually pick up the pace an awful lot higher, especially with those kind of accelerations. So I think the headwind, I hope you'll agree with me, will go against them.
Well, let's see. If they turn a little bit left or right, they might have some wind in the back, so that supports then another attack of Nairo Quintana. They just got to play with the situation they have.
Well, that wind just now is coming from the left of our picture. They're swinging around all the time on this climb, but one thing that is certainly not the case is what was reported today when there was no wind blowing in the forest, because there clearly is now as they continue to set the pace. Wout Poels doing a terrific job at the front.
But Dan Martin, who was sitting at this day in 3rd place in the overall situation, is now in a sincere difficulty. In 184, he started the day looking for 31 seconds. The rider just behind him is one of the teammates of Nairo Quintana, Daniel Moreno. Now, he's not going to assist him at all, but Dan Martin really, for the first time in this tour, under pressure.
That's a very sad sight, actually. We didn't expect to see that. The cameras are now picked up Dan Martin. Remember, he's probably losing his 3rd place overall at this moment in the tour. Back up to the 3 leaders: Serge Pauwels, Thomas de Gent, Daniel Navarro.
Don't know. Well, again, the acceleration comes again from Thomas de Gent.
Well, that's the wrong flag. Contador are no longer in the race, but the man who's hoping to replace him, Kreuziger, has also lost contact with the men that matter. Well, this is a superb piece of riding by Wout Poels. He's completely discouraged all of the attacks from this group. 3 kilometres to go for the leaders.
I was just thinking, Phil, about one of the great victories of Thomas de Gent, the rider in the 1st position there in that red. Oh, there's a move here. again?
I'm not too sure where that could be. Zakarin coming back to the group. I don't know where he's been. But hang on, Valverde's going on the left.
Well, Valverde once again sees it. And look at that, Sergio Henao, the rider coming straight across to his wheel. He knows that he wants to start to mark all of these little moves. But Wout Poels, again, he doesn't jump away to get across the gap. He just slowly accelerates and brings it up to top speed.
These boys are about 4.5 kilometres still to climb.
Well, Phil, just looking at the group that we're looking at here with Wout Poels, the only man missing from the top 10 overall is Dan Martin, who is actually starting to recover a bit because he's only just off the back of the neutral service vehicle. So he's losing himself currently only about 30 seconds. All the other men in the top 10 are in the group. Yates,
but
Quintana.
30 seconds would push him outside the top 7 or 8 riders now. It's a very close race this year.
Yeah, but bear in mind, tomorrow's a time trial. It could all turn around. This group here, though, these are the men I think we're really talking about as De Gent goes once again. He's trying everything. He wants to make sure he wins this race on his own, but every time he attacks, Serge Pauwels, the climber from Belgium, who, as I say, Phil, when I look back, I can only see one victory to his name throughout his career, and that was a stage in the Giro d'Italia. The big stage that De Gent won was the magic climb of the Stelvio, which climbed him up into 3rd place overall in the Giro.
Wout Poels is the pacemaker of Team Sky here. Sergio Henao is the rider in 2nd place. I'm just trying to see who's got into that 3rd slot at the moment. The yellow jersey is here of the leaders of the race overall: Froome, Yates, Quintana, Mollema, Romain Bardet, Henao, Valverde. I haven't seen TJ Van Garderen, but he's still in there, yes. And so out of the top 9, the only man missing is Dan Martin.
And still, Wout Poels on the front, doing that tempo making. And I have to say, as you can see, Henao is a little bit further. TJ Van Garderen most definitely there on the right-hand side. His teammate, a couple of riders in front of him on the left, or should I say in the middle, number 91, Richie Porte. And definitely, Phil, as you say, the only man from the top 9 overall missing from this group is Dan Martin for the moment.
And I see that Louis Meintjes is just tagged onto the back of that group, and the way this group is riding right now, he could move up into the top 11 riders overall in this race before the time trial tomorrow. This is the capture here of Cyril Lemoine. He was in that original group at one time, leading the race by 18 3/4 minutes.
Andre Greipel.
And Andre Greipel, same applies to him.
Well, it's a great chance and a great opportunity for Andre Greipel
That's the best
to
time
see.
he's ever seen a climber in action.
It certainly is, and that's no disrespect to the great German sprinter.
Adam Yates tagged onto the back and needs to move up here with Romain Bardet.
Well, Bardet, number 41, who currently sits in 6th place in the overall standings, he'll be looking for a little opportunity as well, maybe to... Oh, Froome's going!
This is it. 1.5 kilometres. I was wrong, but straight after him goes Porte and Quintana. Bardet's trying to kick in as well. This is going to be another demonstration by the Maillot Jaune, but this time they've marked him.
Well, they certainly have. The response coming immediately from Richie Porte, but also coming from Nairo Quintana. Quintana moves up there into 3rd position, but this is an ideal opportunity, Phil, for the Colombian to launch a counter move. If he's got anything in those legs when we get to the steeper gradients, he needs to try and hit Chris Froome right now.
Whoa, Chris looks round, looks into the eyes of his friend but rival, and that's Richie Porte, the Australian. He gives it a 2nd spin on those pedals, and I can't quite see what's happened to Quintana. He has been unhooked. Quintana losing ground.
Well, that answers a few questions here this afternoon. In the past, we've seen the acceleration coming from Chris Froome, but Quintana has always been able to respond. Here he's in difficulty. The only man who can stay with Chris Froome is the Australian Richie Porte, who must still be ruining the time lost in a mechanical on the 2nd day of the race.
Behind the poker face of this Colombian cyclist, he's never given anything away. We've always suspected he hasn't been quite up to it, and it looks right now as though he is not. He couldn't lift his pace to match Chris Froome, and the boys behind are clawing him back. Well, the crowd on Mont Ventoux are witnessing yet another demonstration by this amazing bike rider who's joined the ranks of the greats of the Tour de France historically now. This is Navarro climbing his way back for Cofidis. He's trying to get up to the leaders once again. There's 2 left.
Well, let's not forget, Phil, that when we look at the top of the screen and see a kilometre to go, that is for the leading group on the road. But further down, there's some serious damage being done by Chris Froome and Richie Porte. Nairo Quintana now has no friends in this group. He has now got to try and limit his losses. But Bauke Mollema moves.
Bauke's having a go now. I was about to say TJ Van Garden's having a much better day on this climb, but now it's Mollema having a little dig. He sits in 5th place overall, and we're talking seconds. There could be a reshuffling of the possible podium in Paris by the time we get to the finish today. And now Richie Porte is going well. He's gone to the front to help out Chris Froome.
Well, that was one for the books there. That's a big double joint for the man who crosses the line in 1st place. I have to say that Thomas de Kent was very crafty there in getting himself the points and the stage victory, and I think takes a little bit of relief off the shoulders now of Team Lotto Soudal.
What a great crowd this really is, cheering them home now. Steph Clement gets 4th place. Says Chavanel will get the 5th place, and first Frenchman on Bastille Day. We're looking in the face of a rather confused Colombian rider right now. He tried to attack, it wasn't there. He's now having to chase the men who are damaging his overall finish in Paris. Well, if they're not in sight.
If there was ever any doubt that Alejandro Valverde was going to ride, look at this. Bauke Mollema now all of a sudden says, hey guys, I've got good legs here this afternoon. I can climb up even higher in the overall standings. I'm looking for 20 seconds or so to overtake Nairo Quintana in the standings.
That's right. If he gets 20 seconds, he'll be up to 3rd place overall in the Tour de France, with Chris Froome behind him there, the only man not losing time to him.
Well, the 2 leaders as well, Phil, in the Best Young Rider competition are in this group. Louis Meintjes 2nd in that competition. A bit further forward in the white jersey was still Adam Yates.
Bauke Mollema has been put back in his place. Chris Froome has accelerated again. This man knows how to suffer.
So too, Phil, does Richie Porte, just sitting there in 2nd position. These guys, well, they're still keeping themselves up in the top 10 in the overall standings. Van Garderen is there. Alejandro Valverde just slipping back a fraction there, number 12. He's done everything he can to pace his man back up.
Richie Porte could be in the top 6 riders in the Tour de France tonight, despite that massive loss of time in the opening days of the Tour because of problems with that crash on day 1. We're looking now as they continue to go up short, as Adam Yates is still there in the white jersey. He'll keep that. He has a private battle with Louis Meintjes. They've really thrown the gauntlet down. Only seconds as they continue to climb. This will be Bert-Jan Lindemann coming over the line now. Almost forgotten about him. He's the man that actually
there's a problem here, Phil.
What's happened?
Well, there's an accident here. As far as I can see, that was the yellow jersey group, and they've gone down. That was because a motorbike got involved.
Mollema having a little dig. He sits in 5th place overall, and we're talking seconds. There could be a reshuffling of the possible podium in Paris by the time we get to the finish today. And now Richie Porte is going well. He's gone to the front to help out Chris Froome.
Well, that was one for the books there. That's a big double joint for the man who crosses the line in 1st place. I have to say that Thomas de Kent was very crafty there in getting himself the points and the stage victory, and I think takes a little bit of relief off the shoulders now of Team Lotto Soudal.
What a great crowd this really is, cheering them home now. Steph Clement gets 4th place. Says Chavanel will get the 5th place, and first Frenchman on Bastille Day. We're looking in the face of a rather confused Colombian rider right now. He tried to attack, it wasn't there. He's now having to chase the men who are damaging his overall finish in Paris. Well, if they're not in sight.
If there was ever any doubt that Alejandro Valverde was going to ride, look at this. Bauke Mollema now all of a sudden says, hey guys, I've got good legs here this afternoon. I can climb up even higher in the overall standings. I'm looking for 20 seconds or so to overtake Nairo Quintana in the standings.
That's right. If he gets 20 seconds, he'll be up to 3rd place overall in the Tour de France, with Chris Froome behind him there, the only man not losing time to him.
Well, the two leaders as well, Phil, in the Best Young Rider competition are in this group. Louis Meintjes second in that competition. A bit further forward in the white jersey was still Adam Yates.
Bauke Mollema has been put back in his place. Chris Froome has accelerated again. This man knows how to suffer.
So too, Phil, does Richie Porte, just sitting there in second position. These guys, well, they're still keeping themselves up in the top 10 in the overall standings. Van Garderen is there. Alejandro Valverde just slipping back a fraction there, number 12. He's done everything he can to pace his man back up.
Richie Porte could be in the top 6 riders in the Tour de France tonight, despite that massive loss of time in the opening days of the Tour because of problems with that crash on day 1. We're looking now as they continue to go up short, as Adam Yates is still there in the white jersey. He'll keep that. He has a private battle with Louis Meintjes. They've really thrown the gauntlet down. Only seconds as they continue to climb. This will be Bert-Jan Lindemann coming over the line now. Almost forgotten about him. He's the man that actually
there's a problem here, Phil.
What's happened?
Well, there's an accident here. As far as I can see, that was the yellow jersey group, and they've gone down. That was because a motorbike got involved somewhere there. I saw the yellow jersey group and Bauke Mollema.
Well, you're seeing pictures as well around the world, but we can tell you there's a problem here. Somebody has gone down with them, and here's the situation. And they're all slowing down here. We haven't got the full story yet. You're seeing live pictures here at the moment. There's no remarks coming through on Radio Tour. But there is Richie Porte struggling with his bike. This is unbelievable. Now we'll have to see what the judges do about this, because we don't know what has caused that delay, but normally they're not in the last kill. Now they're shouting it from the race radio. Well, this has turned the whole situation upside down now. Where will the time be taken? Will they do whatever they do to Chris Froome because he's gone up without a bike? Meanwhile, up towards the finish here, riders are now beginning to come through at the summit. And that's Aru coming through there.
There's Bauke Mollema.
He's coming up towards the finishing line.